All right, so we talked about stability. Now we're going to talk a little bit about mobility. And there's so much information out there on mobility work. Now, my 2 cents is that I want to do soft tissue work first. I want to roll. I want to do my rolling. I want to do any type of that myofascial work, whether it's with a foam roller, a lacrosse ball, a stick, hypervolt, or a theragun, whatever you have at your disposal, use that stuff. It could also be cupping with movement. It could be band flossing. Those are all mobility and soft tissue modalities that help improve soft tissue movement, or the way soft tissue moves, breaks up adhesions, improves tissue glide, maybe address trigger points, all those things that can pop up in a muscle. Okay, so do your soft tissue work first. Some may argue that point, but that's fine. I get the other side of that, but I'd rather have mobile tissue, healthy tissue, than reactivate the system before I train than to go in with lack of mobility, lack of function, or muscle function because the muscle had a trigger point or something. All right, so once we do the soft tissue work, we would go into, like, say for example, in massage therapy, we talk about doing soft tissue work, and there's varying, there's variances here. A lot of people say you don't have to do active trigger point work. Some medical professionals are like, yeah, you need to do the soft trigger point work a certain way, so on and so forth. And I've done it both ways, and I think they're both valid. I tend to side more to let's focus on some trigger points and make sure they're not present, because they cause pain, they can cause muscle weakness, they can affect your range of motion. So that's pretty important. So I'm going to tend to side on let's address trigger points and make sure they're not there. Okay. Do that with a massage therapist that knows trigger point therapy, and then also you can do it with your, like I said, ball work, foam rolling, stick, theragun, hypervolt, those types of things. Okay, so percussion, shearing of the tissue with a band floss, or cupping is another way to decompress and shear. Band floss compresses and shears. So there's just multiple ways of doing it. Okay, once you do that soft tissue work, then we want to take the whatever area we're working on and take it through range of motion to restore proper length, or that's the philosophy. All right, and proper range of motion. Okay, and in the case of a trigger point, you want to improve that length, get blood flow back into the area so that that muscle becomes healthy again. All right, so now getting into stretching, there's a whole bunch of ways to stretch. I'm just going to show you one way that I really like, because it's an assisted version, and then it's not focusing on any one muscle or muscle group. It's focusing on myofascial slings, lines, whatever you want to call them. Okay, so PVC assisted myofascial lines or slings. Front line, that's the anterior line, the front. I'm going to have to tilt this down so you can see my feet. I can do it several different ways, but I'm going to go into this position, and you notice that my foot is plantar flexed. Then I'm going to extend the hip, and then I'm going to put some stretch into the quad and hip area. My anterior tib is stretched. And then I'm just going to take, so this is my right side, I'm going to take this and drive myself into a really shoulder flexion and extension through through the spine. And then I'm going to tilt my head back. So drive the hip forward a little bit, gently. We're not overdoing it. And that is your front line stretch. Okay, that's just one way of doing it. I like it because we got a big base of support. We're close to the ground, and it's pretty darn effective. Now that being said, you got to do both sides. Okay, you're doing one side at a time, basically. All right. So the other side would be here. I'm going to take my right hand to assist my left hand. Okay. Try to stay in the sagittal plane. Don't go left and right. Okay, so that's the front line. The back line is very similar. And you can do this one standing. You could even do it in a kneeling position like I showed, but this is the way I usually do it. And the back line, or posterior line, starts at the bottom of the foot, wraps all the way around, comes up the back, over the top of the head. I know there's probably more detail to that, but that's the basics of it. What I'll do is, I'm going to have my right foot forward, my right hand on the PVC. I'm going to point my toes towards my shin, start to stretch the hip, and then tilt my head and tuck my chin in. Get next to a wall so you have balance. Or you could use this for balance and then this hand reaches, probably even better yet. Now I'm rounding my spine, reaching, stretching out that whole line, like so. Okay? It's a real easy way of doing that one. And you've probably already done that stretch before. Okay? So then there's the lateral line, and that one is basically this frontal plane, but it's this line. And the way that one works is I'm going to have my right leg, because I'm going to stretch my right side inside or back behind my left leg, and then this is merely support. This hand's going to reach up and over. I'm going to jut my hip out, or just press my hip out just a little bit, and I want to elongate my spine, not just bend it at the lower back, just kind of get long, reach up and over, and then flex my head that way, and that's the lateral line. Okay, right side, or this is my left side, sorry. So I really want to focus on lengthening the spine, so getting tall, and then have a nice long curve rather than a sharp curve right in the lower back. Okay, so that's front line, back line, side line, or anterior, posterior, lateral. Okay, and then there's a couple of oblique ones that we'll go into. And what I'll do here, the anterior oblique, is I'll just step forward. I'm going to tuck my tailbone under, extend the hip a little bit, and then from here, so this is on stretch, and I'm going to stretch through this, and I'm just going to push that up and rotate. That's the anterior oblique. Okay, and then finally posterior oblique is a little bit harder to do, and the way you need to do this one is, I'm just going to take you on a little field trip. So we'll come over here. As you can see, I got an elevated surface. I'm going to prop my leg up into a kind of like a pigeon pose position, or a standing pigeon. And then, so I got this glute hip on stretch. I want to reach across with my right hand. So this is the left hip, my right hand is going to reach across. If I could get this on the ground, it would just be on the ground like this. That would be reaching across. So that is the posterior oblique. It's going across and diagonal the body. Okay, hopefully that made sense. I have a separate video already on this topic, so I'm not going to get too crazy with this one here. But those, now I should probably just show you this because this might be easier to do. Is simply as long as the hip stretch appropriate for you, you can do a pigeon. Do your pigeon and reach. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm trying to stretch the line across diagonally my back side from this glute to my right side. Okay? All right, that is the PVC assisted myofascial stretches, myofascial line stretches.